And that's kind of all I marked for you to read,
all right.
Actually.
I marked you for death, so we're even.
Fair enough.
You can always do the revenge sorcery from the grave, though. Remember that?
Oh,
I'll do an episode on that.
Don't you worry. Plans are made. Welcome to the edge of nowhere. They're playing games at the edges of what we know. Monster Lore Tour Podcast. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 88 of the Monster Lore Tour Paranormal Deep Dives from the Edge of Nowhere podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Carr, here along with my co-host and the Christopher Robin to my Winnie the Pooh, Mr. Matt Ozero, a.k.a. the Moz. How we doing today, Moz?
No complaints. Used to call me the 100-acre wood back in the day. You know?
Oh.
There you go.
Oh, wow. TMI. Excuse me. Well, I am back hosting again after what's quite a break, actually, when I think about it. I haven't actually led one of these episodes. I got some interviews recently.
Have you ever really led one? Come on.
Yeah. You know, I'm a flow kind of guy. I just show you where I'm going. I don't really lead. I just show you where I'm going.
He does. So you have to pee on the spot. It's like really strange.
Yeah. That's what the bucket right there is.
Junebug taught us that.
I pee when my dog pees.
Well, this is going well.
Oh, no. What happened?
We took a break.
Oof.
Is what happened.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oof.
Well, and yeah, so it's been a while since I've hosted. It's been a while since we've even done an episode, actually. We took a little bit of an extra break there.
We did.
We're going to more like a once-a-month schedule, and we're even past that with this one. So apologize for that to all you listeners out there. But we're still around. We're still doing it. We're still making it happen. But I figured, speaking of breaks, figured it was time for a true crime episode.
There we go.
Because I looked it up, and I haven't done a true crime episode since like last October.
Since we knocked off the Circle K.
It's like getting on a year since I did a true crime. Yep. I didn't realize it'd been that long. So I'm going to hit one of those today that hits a little close to home for us, Moz. But,
well, that's terrible.
The last one I did was from the 1990s and was maybe the most famous murder trial in New Mexico history.
Yep.
Today's is from the 1930s and still stands as probably the most famous murder trial ever in the history of Arizona, which is where we're at. So this is like home.
Which where it's at as well.
Yeah, this story starts in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yep.
Like right there in it. But now it is getting close to a century since this story rocked the nation. And it seems that the legend of the Tiger Woman of Phoenix, one of the many monikers given to Winnie Ruth Judd throughout the mid-1900s. It's all like now fading into obscurity.
Is she a shape-shifting were-jaguar? Because I'm doing that next.
No, that's your topic next time. Okay. This is actually just a woman.
This is like when Jeremy's peeing on my spot again.
Old school Phoenicians or Arizonans might recognize the name Winnie Ruth Judd. Most of you probably haven't heard it because from the 1930s to the 1980s, people were talking about it a lot. In Arizona especially. But since then, it's kind of faded out of everyone's mind.
That's why he did Winnie the Pooh. I get it now.
There you go. Yep. Okay. That's why.
I'm dialing it back in.
So we are here today to remind our state, our country, and our world about one of the most messed up murders and subsequent trials to ever take place in the annals of modern history. The trouble all started, as far as the public eye was concerned, on October 18th, 1931, when a baggageman on a train bound for Los Angeles out of Phoenix noticed something odd. His name was H.J. Mapes, and he'd been a baggage man for a good bit over 20 years at this point, so he knew the usual problems that could arise. On the night train out of Phoenix on October 17th, 1931, Mr. Mapes noticed an offensive odor coming from one of the trunks being loaded in the baggage car. So when things settled in and he had a minute to spare, he went to investigate further. When he found the offensive-smelling trunk in the baggage car, he found what he believed to be blood leaking from one of the corners. His first thought was they had a poacher on board.
You know, I always do something like this because in my bag there's a lot of cocaine, and this is like a diversion.
The blood distracts them from the cocaine?
Yeah.
That's a good way.
They always smuggle a dead body in a bag. And
you put them in the same
drugs,
bag?
No, you put the drugs like on the other side.
Oh, in a different bag?
Yeah.
Okay, that was a better plan than I thought.
Jeremy's bag has...
Still not a good plan, but better than I initially thought. But you see, back in those days, a lot of Californians would go to Arizona to hunt. But it wasn't legal to transport the carcass of whatever meat you killed back across state lines.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the first time Mr. Mapes had suspicions of a poached deer being smuggled aboard. He marked the luggage for inspection before allowing the passenger to claim the trunks and went back to his typical duties, his responsibility in this situation seemingly satisfied. When the train arrived in Los Angeles, the bags were sent to the office for inspection, and everyone involved agreed that there was something mighty fishy about the bloody trunk. Didn't smell like fish, though.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Smelled bad,
right,
but not fishy.
Yep.
And the other trunk...
It's a not deer.
And there was another trunk. Mm-hmm. When, once they got the luggage off the train, they found there was another trunk registered by the same passenger under the name Mr. McKinnell. Mm. And this trunk seemed to be in the same kind of condition. Little bloody leakage, bad smell.
Should be a dog then. It's Mr. McKinnell. I've already cracked this case.
McKinnell. The trunks were tagged, and the baggageman waited to see who would come and pick them up. In the meantime, in the station lobby, a female custodian by the name of Stella Connolly, who was in charge of the ladies' rooms, watched as a woman came off the train and had her suitcase and hat box ported straight to the ladies' room and stashed them behind the door. This was most unusual, as passengers were supposed to pre-check their bags or rent a locker if they did not want to keep hold of their luggage. And behind the door of the ladies' room seemed a most uncouth place to place such things. You know, Moz?
Yeah, you need a bigger suite if you're going to have a dead body.
Yeah, like just plopping your luggage in the bathroom.
Yeah.
The woman had some sort of injury on her left hand, which was wrapped in a handkerchief, and looked rather distraught as she seemed to wait impatiently for something. So Stella let it go. But time started ticking by, and the woman just kept waiting. For hours she waited, sitting and walking around and sitting and walking around, with trains coming and going, and the bags remained behind the ladies' room door. Finally, Stella approached the woman about moving her bags out of the damn ladies' room. Short version, the distraught traveler said she had no funds to check her She had no funds to check or locker her bags, as she only had enough money left for a single streetcar fare, and she was waiting for her now grossly overdue brother to pick her up, and she was obviously now going to have to go find him. So could you please keep an eye on my bags for a bit? And if my brother happens to show up, can you please tell him to wait here for me? Yeah, that's what it turned into. Stella being miffed, but also kind.
I'm still on the whole streetcar and Stella thing right now. Sorry. I wanted to yell it, and I'm not going to yell it, but we all want to yell it.
I can edit it out later if you want.
I'll yell it later.
You want to get it out of your system?
I'll yell it later.
Okay.
Stella!
You feel better?
I feel better.
Okay, good. Stella, being miffed, but also kind, reluctantly said, okay, and watched the woman abscond from the scene. Sometime later that day, the mystery woman with the bandaged hand showed up at the luggage bay, along with the Mr. McKinnell, under whose name she had registered them. Mm-hmm. Here is how it went, according to Arthur V. Anderson, district baggage agent, testifying at the trial later on, as reported by the Douglas Daily Dispatch in January of the following year. We're going to hear a lot from the Douglas Daily Dispatch. It was my newspaper of source for a lot of this episode.
This I know, yeah.
But here's this article. Quote, I asked whose trunks they were. She said they were hers. They approached the trunks, he said, and he asked if they could detect the odor. They said they could not. Which one of them said that? This is going to be a little back and forth with the lawyer questioning. Which one of them said that? As I recall, both said it. How far were they from the trunks at that time? About 12 feet. Then they approached closer. They went right up to them. Could they smell it then?
Ooh, this Arthur V. Anderson, I'm liking his...
McKinnell said he could, and then the mystery woman said she could too. I asked her what was in it to make that odor. She said she didn't know. The witness said when he informed them the trunk would have to be opened and inspected, McKinnell, quote, suggested it might cause some embarrassment and wanted me to come out to the residence and inspect it. That I declined to do.
Well, that's smelly trunks, Jeremy.
So he was like, we don't need to do that here, do we? Can we do that at my place?
Yeah.
Sketchy, right?
Yeah, it's sketch.
Continuing, quote, the mystery woman opened her bag to get her keys, but said she could not find them and would have to telephone her husband. Later, after having been taken to a telephone, she said she would have to go find her husband to get them, and she and McKinnell departed. This is a real sign of how times have changed. They pulled some trunks off the train, leaking blood. Didn't open them. Mm. And when the people come to pick them up, these people act super duper suspicious and then just run away. And everyone just stands there and watches them run away. And it was only at this point that the baggage guys thought to call the police.
Wow. Yeah.
That's how much things have changed in the last almost 100 years.
Yeah.
You used to be able to get away with stuff in this world, Maz. Yeah. The internet really kind of broke that.
Nope. Not happy about it.
Can't get away with stuff no more.
I'm glad I got all my bar stuff out of my...
What would happen if they pulled a stinky, bloody trunk off the Amtrak train in Los Angeles these days?
Or just right down here in Flagstaff.
Cops would be on that 30 seconds with crowbars, just popping that open.
I think Grodin and De Niro tried that in Midnight Run.
There you go. Never ends well.
Yeah.
Anywho, when they finally called the LA Police Department about the bloody trunks, Detective Frank Ryan was sent to check it out. Here is how Jana Bommersbach's book, I get to say that a lot today too. I like saying that. Jana Bommersbach's book, The Trunk Murderess, describes what happened when he arrived at the train station. Lieutenant Ryan knew what blood looked like and how it smelled, and he was sure the sticky liquid oozing out of the trunk was blood. Anderson brought him a sack of pass keys, and Ryan picked the lock of the big black trunk. On the top was a piece of rug. He moved it aside and found a number of books and papers. Beneath them were pieces of women's clothing, some smeared with blood. They were piled on top of a house-made quilt. He lifted a corner of the quilt. He was looking at the head of a woman. As he instinctively jerked his hand away, the quilt was pulled aside. Crammed into the trunk was a dark-haired woman wearing pink pajamas. She was on her side, her head in one corner and her knees drawn up. Lieutenant Ryan recoiled so violently that the lid slammed shut with a thud. He rushed into the depot office and called precinct headquarters, requesting fingerprint men and the guys from the morgue. As he waited for the backup, Ryan opened the smaller trunk. Several sheets of paper lay on the top, some stained with blood. A light cotton blanket was stuffed around the contents. Underneath were 2 bundles wrapped in women's clothing. He unwrapped the first one. It contained a human foot and a leg from the knee down. He opened the second. Inside was the torso of a woman from the head to the navel. Ryan decided he'd seen enough and had better wait for the lab men, but he already knew something that made him sick. The pieces in this trunk didn't add up to a whole body. This is when Stella Conley came forward to tell them about the suitcase in the hat box stashed behind the ladies' room door. Thus begins the most infamous murder case to ever come out of the deserts of Arizona. When news of the bodies in the bloody trunks hit the papers, it sparked the biggest manhunt in the history of the West, looking for the mystery woman with the injured hand and her male companion.
And the 6-fingered man.
Oh, she might have had 5 fingers at that, or 4 fingers at that point, for all we know.
That's true. It's more likely.
It didn't take long for the woman to be caught and identified as Winnie Ruth Judd, now suddenly known across the nation, thanks to the tireless work of the yellow journalists of the day by such monikers as the Tiger Woman and the Trunk Murderess.
Nice. We miss those good yellow journalism.
Right? We don't get good nicknames like that anymore, I don't think.
Yep. Except in college.
The snappy headlines, you know?
Yeah.
Not those long-form AI tabloidy things. Yeah. Anywho. And by the way...
Boy in refrigerator eats own foot. Airplane.
See? We don't get that anymore.
We don't get that anymore. That was the 80s.
And speaking of which, the Trunk Murderess, the title of the book that I'm sourcing there from Jana Bommersbach, full title is The Trunk Murderess, Winnie Ruth Judd, The Truth About an American Crime Legend Revealed at Last. It's got a big title. And this is my other main source besides the Douglas Daily Dispatch for this episode, which those I got from chroniclingamerica.com, which is the Library of Congress's newspaper archive online, free for everyone. Yeah. Super cool to look through. Goes way back, comes up to pretty reasonably recent. I forget the cutoff. I know till at least the 1970s.
60s.
Is it the 60s? I think it goes into the 70s a little bit at least. But especially for the historic stuff, like from the late 1800s all the way up to the mid 1900s, the old newspaper stuff, it's great. Everything's in there. Okay, but now that we have been thrown into the madness of these murders most foul, we must go back to the beginning and ask ourselves, who is this Winnie Ruth Judd, and how did she end up in such a situation? Let's start at the beginning. Here is good old Wikipedia with a succinct background on Ruth. She liked to go by Ruth, her middle name, so I'm going to mostly call her Ruth throughout this. So here's Wikipedia background on her. Do you want to read this bit for me, Moss?
This goes back to Baby Ruth, but...
Baby Ruth?
Yeah.
Probably some pretty cute pictures.
Winnie Ruth McKinnell was born on January 29th, 1905, to the Reverend H.J. McKinnell, a Methodist minister, and his wife Carrie in Oxford, Indiana. At age 17, she was married to Dr. William C. Judd, a World War I veteran, more than 20 years her senior, and moved to Mexico with him. William was reportedly a morphine addict as a result of war injuries and had difficulty keeping a job, forcing the couple to move frequently and live on an uncertain income. The marriage was further strained by Winnie Ruth Judd's health problems and inability to bear children. This reminds me of our friendship and our relationship and the strains involved. It just brought me to that a little bit.
Wow.
Just cut that out. Just cut that.
I'm the one on the drugs, right?
I actually thought of that joke, and then I read the rest of it, and it didn't work, and I still said it. And it was like, no, this is so bad. Sorry.
Thank you, Maz. The health problem they speak of was tuberculosis. It was rampant back in those days without any real curative to speak of, and it was why a lot of people moved to the dry heat of the Southwest in Mexico around that time.
Yep.
Because that environment seemed to help.
Yeah.
When Winnie got to Phoenix, she had just come up from Mexico with her husband, where he had lost his doctoring job due to drug use. He once again couldn't hold a job in Phoenix and ran off to California to look for some sort of stable work, leaving Ruth alone in the newly growing city of Phoenix for all intents and purposes, completely on her own. Here's a bit more from Wiki on this. Do you want to finish this bit off for us, Moz?
After a few months, Judd began working as a secretary at the Grunno Medical Clinic in Phoenix. There she met Agnes Ann Leroy, an X-ray technician, and her roommate Hedvig Samuelson, who had moved together from Alaska after Samuelson contracted tuberculosis. The two women were also friendly with Jack Halloran. Remember that name? Judd became friends with Leroy and Samuelson and even moved in with them for a couple of months in 1931. But differences developed between the women, and Judd soon returned to her own apartment, located a short distance away from the rented bungalow, shared by Leroy and Samuelson.
So long story short, what we have here are three young, beautiful women who, for all intents and purposes, are on their own in the newly flourishing city of Phoenix.
And Jack Ritter moves in when?
Jack Halloran. Remember that name?
Jack Halloran.
I added that remember that name part.
Gotcha.
Remember that name. So now the 1930s was a tough time for everybody with the Depression and Prohibition and all. And it was particularly difficult for a woman on her own due to women then being, second-class citizens in the eyes of both the people and the law, pretty much. So the three women did what they could to figure out to stay alive. Ruth and Ann were able to garner decent incomes from jobs at the local clinic, especially Ann with her specialty training in operating the newfangled technology of the X-ray machine.
There you go.
That's the time we're looking at. Do you remember in episode 26 when Nandor Fodor used the X-ray machine on Alma?
Yeah. So it was brand new.
That's kind of same time frame we're talking there. That was a fun one, Alma Fielding, back in episode 26.
I thought it was Simon Pegg, but okay. I'll take your word for it.
Anywho, where was I? Ruth and Ann are making decent incomes working at the clinic. Sammy, however, was just too worn down by her tuberculosis to work any sort of real full-time job. So the two incomes, the one income between Ann and Sammy, really, because Ann was basically taking care of Sammy at that point officially. But even when all three of them, with the two incomes, were all living in the same small apartment for a while, it was still hard for them to keep things going. So in order to pull those ends together and make them meet, they began entertaining wealthy businessmen after hours at Ann and Sammy's apartment. As mentioned, Phoenix was just beginning to come into its own as a city, and the big money businessmen putting the plans together would spend long days in the heart of the city, while their families stayed home in their fancy mansions out in the hills. It was cooler up in the hills.
Always is.
Yeah, and away from all the hustle and bustle of the burgeoning downtown area. So after work on the average day, these businessmen didn't want to drive straight out to the hills to their families. They wanted to stay in town and wind down a bit with some illegal booze drinking in the company of some beautiful young ladies that didn't look like their wives who were waiting for them at home.
Yep.
You know how it goes there.
Yep.
Especially 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So Ann and Sammy's apartment became a usual after-hours hangout joint for a number of these local business mogul types. At the head of this pack of lecherous fops was a man named
Jack Ritter.
Jack Halloran. We'll get you there eventually, Moz. We'll get you. Let's just call him Jack. Jack introduced the girls to all his friends and other gentlemen that would frequent their company. In return for their hosting duties, these gentlemen would lavish the ladies with gifts. Things like a new radio when they needed one, or maybe a new refrigerator to keep the illegal booze stores in, and even just an occasional envelope full of cash. Now, Jack Halloran was the ladies' unanimous favorite, but it was Ruth that got the closest to him, and it wasn't long before the two of them started a full-on extramarital affair.
I prefer the half-on, but okay.
Yeah.
To each his own.
Well, so Ruth, Ann, and Sammy enjoyed the perks of their what some would then call harlotish lifestyle.
Wow.
For a good while.
Harlotish. I like
Harlot
that.
was the word they would use then.
But I like the ish part. That's good.
Yeah.
Harlotish.
I'm not going to put that label on them, but, it was the term of the times is what I'm getting at.
So that's in quotes.
I quote unquote harlotish.
Okay.
I like to make up words.
Yeah, I like it.
Thank you.
That's a true trickster.
Yeah. But so Ruth's husband remained absent for a very extended period of time out in California, and she got ever more attached to her new beau, Jack. He was a fancy man with a fancy car and fancy friends and a big fancy smile, and Ruth had never felt so fancy as when she was in Jack's company. It all went well for a while with the ladies and their pack of random businessmen, but we all know that these things never last or end well. Mm-hmm. And this time was no exception. It all started with a syphilitic female patient who became a nurse at the clinic that Ruth took a shine to. Syphilis, much like tuberculosis, was rampant in those days and had no real curative. It was a much feared, sexually transmitted disease that was on par with leprosy in the eyes of the public. But there was this patient at the clinic that Ruth wanted to help out, and she was wise to some fishing territories in the area that Ruth thought Jack Halloran would like to know about. Ruth decided she would introduce Jack to the pretty young syphilitic patient. Of course, in Ruth's mind, this was no risk, as the girl was not actually outwardly contagious, currently according to the doctor in charge of the clinic. And Ruth just knew that Jack was her man and wouldn't be banging around with all these other women he has the rendezvous with every other night of the week, right?
Is that another word you made up?
But for everyone else involved who knew Jack was actually banging around town from woman to woman, finding out that Ruth had introduced him to a young hottie with syphilis would be a major problem.
Right.
Of course, it didn't take long for Anne and Sammy to find out.
Yeah. Just started with a simple kiss.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to get into the timeline of this thing, okay? Just so you know, this is going to be straight through the timeline as far as best I can put it together from the books and articles and everything that I read.
Nice.
All right, so here we go into the darkness, because this is where it really starts. One morning, after Ruth had spent the night at Anne and Sammy's apartment, something she did very regularly, they were just starting their day with breakfast when Anne asked Ruth how Jack Halloran had come to meet the young syphilitic nurse from the clinic. When Ruth admitted to introducing them, Anne got heated and threatened to tell Jack about the syphilis. This freaked Ruth out because she knew this would lead Jack to break off their relationship and leave Ruth high and dry. It would probably even cost her job at the clinic. So Ruth retorted about how she had all the dirt she needed on Anne to see her fired from her job as well, and that she would expose them as the harlots they were and ruin all they had going on with their businessman friends.
So this is a happy ending. She was just a bitch and ended up on a train in a trunk.
Wow, you're so off. Okay. This is why I want to do the timeline before we discuss things. Stop. That's exactly why, right there. This battle escalated quickly to the point of them both offering complete destruction of the other. And of course, this being Arizona and all, Sammy came running in with a gun. Here is how Ruth would later describe the scene to law enforcement. Quote, "She had the gun pointed right at my heart, and Sammy used to take spells." She had like seizures kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what they call it back in the day. Spells. Yeah, she's having a spell.
And Sammy used to take spells, and she would she didn't look like herself at all. And she had the gun pointed right at my heart, and I grabbed the hand with the gun. The table was right there by the door. The kitchen table was right there, and on the table was the bread knife. And I grabbed for the gun and the knife right about the same time she shot me through the hand, just before I stabbed. I stabbed her once in the shoulder and once in the head, and the blade of the knife bent clear around. It was a long knife and had a green handle, and it was blunt, and I stabbed her with that, and it bent double. And then we dropped to the floor, and I grabbed her and pushed her with this arm, and I yelled, "Give me that gun!" Like that. And I grabbed the gun, and her hand was yet on the trigger when that shot went through her chest, and she never relaxed on the gun one bit until after she was shot through the chest. And then we both grappled on the floor for the gun. We fell on the floor and fought back and forth, and I yelled, "Give me the gun!" And then Anne yelled, "Shoot Sammy! Shoot Sammy! Shoot her!" And she got the ironing board that was right behind the kitchen door. When Anne came with the ironing board, she hit me with a blow immediately, and she said, "I will brain you!" And she hit me with the ironing board over the head, and I hollered and I yelled, "Give me that gun!" And she yelled, "Sammy, shoot!" And she hit me. I don't know how many times it was, but she would knock me flat on the floor with the ironing board, and we rolled around in that way, I don't know how long, until I got the gun. She had never released hold on the gun at all, not a bit, until we fell, and her hand was on the trigger when she was shot through the chest. I kept trying to get up, and when I started to get up, when I was rising, Anne knocked me down with the ironing board when I was in a half-upright position. There was at least 5 or 6 shots. I know there were that many shots fired because there was but one cartridge that wasn't emptied. All but one. But I didn't see any bullet. I've never loaded a gun in my life, and I've never shot a gun before in my life. In my life before, absolutely not. Never shot a gun, never saved my life. She kind of rattles off a bit. We progress a little, and her attorney asks her, "Now in shooting Anne, were you sitting on the floor?" Quote, "I started to get up. I was down on the floor and we were rolling back and forth fighting for this gun. When I started to get up, she banged me on the head with the ironing board just as I shot. She hit me on the head. When I came to, I was sitting between 2 bodies on the floor. I ran out of that place. I put my dress on and nothing else, just my shoes and my dress." When Ruth was examined by a doctor after her capture, she was found to be covered with bruises and wounds, including a bullet lodged in her left hand. When asked about this examination later, the doctor said, quote, "I have a complete record of my examination with a detailed report of many bruises. Because of them, it has always been my impression that Mrs. Judd put up a tremendous fight for her life." Now is where we start wondering what the hell is going on. If Ruth was just defending herself when she killed her friends, how is this some big famous murder trial?
Right.
And how the hell did those girls end up in those bloody trunks? Well, things are about to get oh so very much worse. So hold on, everybody. If that wasn't bad enough, it's going to
That wasn't the actual problem.
Oh, no, that's just the beginning.
That was the appetizer.
We just started.
Yeah.
We just started, Moss. After her battle for survival, Ruth ran home to her own apartment to get her money. She was planning on going to a nearby hotel to use a payphone to call her long-absent husband in California. But before she could even get back to the door, who comes rolling into her driveway in his big fancy car but Mr. Jack Halloran? And Jack's drunk as a pink elephant. You got anything on pink elephants there, Moss?
Yeah, we're going to do that one in a few weeks.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's totally irrelevant to this murder, but...
Irrelevant?
Yeah. Doesn't.
Irrelevant?
That's a Marx Brothers thing,
Nice.
probably.
So Jack comes in before Ruth can get out, and she tells him everything that just happened. Pours her heart out. Jack refuses to believe her, regardless of her wounds and her pleading. And he just keeps insisting that they go to the girl's apartment to see what's really going on with all this noise and just acting all weird and crazy and out of character, even for being sloshed. Jack's acting weird. So Jack, drunk as a deer on Smurf piss, puts Ruth in his car and goes careening off toward the murder scene. Thankfully, the roads were empty back then, so they got there alive despite Jack's condition. And of course, as soon as Jack sees the murder scene, he starts tampering with it. Here is how Ruth later described it in her own words when under questioning from the court. Jack picked up Sammy and he carried her in and laid her on Anne's bed. I don't think he knew that she was shot in the head then. I guess she was dead. If they ever find the mattress, a chemical analysis can be made and they can prove that it's Sammy's blood that is on the mattress. And it's my opinion that it would be on the mattress because of the fact the woman was bleeding terribly, but the head was not bleeding at all. When he carried her over and laid her on the bed, there was no blood on the clothes anyplace. He threw the pillows off and he laid her on Anne's bed, and the covers had been pulled down, and there was no blood on the covers. If you know what they say about that mattress, I know he took the mattress. Jack Halloran took the mattress out away from there. He said, "You better let Dr. Brown treat your hand." And I told him I didn't want him to. You know, a long time before, he told me he had plenty on Dr. Brown. He told me he had enough on Brown to hang him. He wanted me to straighten things around the kitchen, and I couldn't do anything with one hand, couldn't do anything. And I wanted to call my husband, and I was going to tell him about this affair, and he advised me not to do that. He would tend to all this himself. If you would let Dr. Brown dress your hand, I will attend to the whole thing myself, he said. Then he pulled the trunk in from the garage. He told me that he was going to take Anne out in a trunk. He didn't say anything about Sammy. Ruth says Halloran knew Sammy's packing trunk was in the garage because he had put it there himself after he helped Sammy move into the duplex. Now he dragged it into the kitchen, and she watched him put Anne's body inside. He told her he would dispose of the body in the desert. He took a mop and cleaned up a bit in the kitchen. Then he took Ruth home. He advised me to let Dr. Brown treat my hand for me and never say anything to my husband about this because he would take care of this thing himself, and that there would be nothing to it. Jack dialed the phone several times in the dark because he had the lights off in the bedroom, and he pulled the blinds down and dialed the phone, and then he took me home because I was getting hysterical. I was raising the dickens, and he took me home, and he told me he would take care of everything, and for me to not say a thing to anybody, and he would see me later. So Ruth reported in the same testimony that Jack had left a very clear bloody fingerprint on the blinds as he pressed them down to peer out the window that she just mentioned. Plus he was dialing the phone. They had good fingerprinting back then. That was one thing.
Yeah, I know. I don't know where we're at as far as that. So
they didn't have DNA or anything, but fingerprinting was on point.
No, you had still had DNA. They just didn't know. They
didn't know what to do with it. They didn't know what to do with DNA.
Yeah.
Like they could find blood and tell you they could do blood typing.
Yeah,
but they couldn't do DNA.
Gotcha.
But the fingerprint thing, that was something they were using all over the place. So not only was he tampering with evidence, but he was leaving his own evidence along the way through the whole process, is basically what I'm getting at there, what she was getting at there. Also, Ruth noted that she picked up the gun she and Sammy had fought so savagely for on her way out of the murder house. In a bit of a twist, that gun that Sammy came at Ruth with was actually Ruth's gun.
Oh, boy.
Her husband had left it with her for protection when he ran off to California, but Ruth despised guns, so she gave it to Ann and Sammy for a little home protection. So, add that to your notes there, Maz, on
none of this makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay.
It's going to kind of in the end, I hope. So stay with me. Now back to the timeline according to Ruth's testimony. This is more of Ruth's testimony. Quote, "About noon the next day, Jack called me at the clinic, telling me he couldn't take care of, quote-unquote, those parties as he planned. He asked me, 'Have you done anything about your hand yet?' And I told him, 'No, I want to go up to Los Angeles. I want to get this bullet out of my hand. I think that is best.'"
You know where she should go? Palm Springs.
Nice. "And he said he thought it was a good idea for me to go to Los Angeles. And he wanted me to take the trunk to Los Angeles." Right now they're both in one trunk. There's only one trunk at this point. "And I said I will not take those to Los Angeles. And he says I can't do anything about that trunk, and he wanted me to meet him that night. He wanted me to talk things over with him. And so I waited outside the girls' bungalow on Saturday night, and he kept driving around and around the house. And I went inside because it was cool and I was afraid. I didn't know what he was going to do, whether he was going to kill me or not. And then when he stopped the car, we went into the house, and the trunk was in the living room behind the door. He told me he had operated on Sammy. Sammy had been operated on. Just to put it plainly for the record, you remember from the beginning how there was one whole body in one trunk and one body split between the others?
Yeah, not a full jigsaw puzzle.
That separating is what Jack was referring to when he said operated on.
Yeah, I get it. Smash mouth.
This is why I don't do a lot of true crime stuff. Right here. This is why I don't do this a lot. This is why it's going to be maybe close to another year before you get another one of these out of me. But Ruth continues, quote, "He wanted me to take the trunk, and he said that there would be someone there to meet me and take the trunk at Los Angeles. That he had a man by the name of Williams or Wilson who would come and meet me in Los Angeles. I was there for 2 hours looking to see if I could find that man that was to meet me when I got into Los Angeles. I didn't call my brother, I didn't phone for my brother, and there are lots of people that can tell you that I walked up and down that place looking for someone." You can see how the situation is snowballing, and Ruth is the one lining up to take the hit when it all crashes down.
But her story makes more sense than anyone's so far.
Well, because she's telling the actual one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only when we get Ruth's actual story.
Yeah, because she's matching. It's going to be this because of that.
That's what basically all of this is kind of coming from. But even getting hoodwinked, button hooked, and stood up wasn't the worst part for Ruth in the aftermath of her battle to the death. So it comes down to Jack basically just abandoning Ruth and leaving her with seemingly no choice but to follow his stupid bloody trunks on the train idea. We all know how that turned out after all. But desperate times and measures and everything. So Ruth gets to work trying to get it done, all with a bullet still lodged in her hand, mind you. Mm-hmm. Now she doesn't have a transport, she doesn't have a car, or the bodily strength to move a trunk with both of her best friends' bodies in it. And like I said, we only have one trunk right now. Mm-hmm. This is you got to remember that's kind of a key point.
And one red shoe. I'm following this.
So Ruth called a local delivery company, which in those days would send the truck over to move your stuff across town or whatever. So Ruth figured they'd take the trunk to the train station directly, and she could get on the train that very night and get the duck out of Fudge. Or Phoenix, as it were. This is Saturday night, mind
you. Can't do it with Phoenix because we'd have to edit it out.
Yeah. Get the duck out of Phoenix.
No. You wouldn't have to edit that out.
This is Saturday night, mind you.
If you did it right, you'd have to edit it out.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is less than a day after the battle in the kitchen. But the delivery guys show up and inform Ruth that her trunk is certainly heavier than the train will allow for a single trunk. Regulations and all, you know, Maz.
Yeah.
Ruth insists they take it to the train. They insist that ain't going to happen. So she ends up getting them to bring the trunk to her own apartment just to get it the hell out of there. And that they agree to do. This is not ideal. Ruth ends up pacing around her apartment in circles around this bloody trunk into the wee hours of Sunday morning, just staring like a trapped rat at the trunk that holds her 2 murdered friends, one of whom has been operated on. She's not even sure what that means yet.
Yeah.
By 3 a.m,
it's not even the right word for what happened.
By 3 a.m, in the 3 a.m. hour, her wits are gone, her nerves are completely frayed, and her mind just keeps screaming at her to get out of there and go to Los Angeles. It was then, in the witching hour of Sunday morning, that Ruth gathered what other luggage she had, a smaller trunk, a suitcase, and a hat box, and in the darkened living room she opened the trunk and repacked the pieces of Sammy. When the job was done, she had 2 trunks, a suitcase, and a hat box that would all ride just fine on the train to Los Angeles. She offered some friendly neighbors a small sum to help her get the luggage to the train station, and they were more than happy to oblige the friendly young neighbor with the injured hand, especially for a small fee. This was the Depression and all. And then Ruth was on her way to Los Angeles. And we all know how that worked out, don't we, Moz?
Badly.
Badly.
Oh, at the beginning. Or beginningly.
We got that at the beginning.
Harlot-ish.
Ruth runs from the train station. APB goes out. She gets picked up and booked for murder after less than a week on the run. It was like 6 days on the run. As I said, she was examined medically upon her arrest, and the doctor testified to her wounds, consistent with a battle for her very life, including a bullet still lodged in her hand, her left hand. So her story is totally in line. This is the story as best as I can put it together from Ruth's own words in her testimonies to law enforcement and the courts, and as presented in Jana Bommersbach's book and the newspapers.
So yeah, you always coordinate a lot of, you juggle with the information. I
try to find a good book and then do the additional, like original resourcing to the newspapers or magazines I can find online, things like that.
But you do reorder everything.
I do reorder everything.
Yep.
I present it in my own way.
Yep.
But before that's pretty much the timeline as I have it. So is there anything you want, if there's anything you want to discuss before moving on and getting into the trial and the case?
That is the only sense I get is that Ruth is the only one who has a prayer of maybe having the right version of events and everyone else is just making shit up as they go along. It's just my impression.
Ruth is the only one who ever told the real story.
Maybe. That's my first impression.
Oh, I'll tell you that right now. That's not giving anything away.
Yeah.
Anyone else who was actually there is dead or never came to light.
Yeah. And I did just get this one sent to me right before we went online. It always happens differently.
Oh, yeah. You had no idea what you were getting into on this one. Yeah.
It depends on the day if I have some.
That's true. Sometimes I send them to you like way ahead, and sometimes you don't see them till
it's all random. Or sometimes you only send me what you want me to see. Ooh. And then I end up in a trunk.
You only ever see what I want you to see, Moz.
Don't Morpheus this shit, okay?
I've adjusted your frequency. Okay. So we know the state Ruth was in after all this madness. And when the coroner got a hold of Ann and Sammy's bodies, they were able to tell some more about what really happened in that murderous apartment that fateful night. So first, let's address Sammy's so-called operation, as Jack so blithely put it. It's about to get really, really real here, so it's going to keep getting worse.
Put the kids to bed.
Little trigger warning here.
Yep.
Jana Bommersbach describes the findings thusly. Sammy's body was bisected, cut in 2 major pieces at the waistline. Then her legs were severed at the knees. There is also a 10-inch long, 2-inch deep gash at the hip bone in the right leg, as though the cutter had intended to sever her torso from her legs, but then quickly abandoned the idea. Gruesome stuff, man. But a big point in the findings was that all the cuts and separations were straight and clean. Surgically done would be the term. They were surgical and precise. They were so clean that the mortician was able to put her back together, no problem.
So you mean it's two different operations? There's two different levels of skill level?
Well, there's...
Or do you think some of it he did right and some of it he did wrong?
No, the whole thing is clean. There's one cut that they were like, cut her in half.
Yeah, but he changed his mind. He was just hacking at the femur, and he just said, this is dumb.
Cut her in half.
Yeah.
And cut her and took the legs off at the knees.
Oh, at the knees.
So the hips... They probably started at the hip, and it was like, they're going to take the legs off. And then he was probably like, it's probably easier if I just do it in the midsection.
Yeah. I feel like I would have been like, just give me the hacksaw. Like, what are you doing?
The point is, it was surgical. It was done by someone who knows how to amputate, it was done by a doctor. It was done by a surgeon. This is not somebody with, this is not
I'm getting it now.
This is not a freaked out rookie with a hacksaw. This isn't a random person with a hacksaw.
Dr. Brown.
This is a doctor with a scalpel.
It's Dr. Brown. This is why I had to go back to the future.
Dr. Brown. Yeah. That's why it was mentioned that Jack Halloran had enough on Dr. Brown to hang him.
And this is when cow mutilation comes back into it.
In the phone calls that Jack was making from the apartment when Ruth was there.
Right. Yeah.
Dr. Brown.
But I thought he had enough to hang Brown before.
Yes. That's how you get somebody to do something like that for you. Is you already have enough to hang them.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm getting it. And Marty
another quick quote from the book is, quote, "They are so clean talking about the cuts in the book, they are so clean you instantly think you are looking at a body that underwent an operation."
Yeah.
Clean.
Yes.
This wasn't like a murderous hack.
Yes.
This was a doctor doing an operation.
Right.
And we also see kind of the psychology of Jack saw this happen, and he calls it an operation.
Yeah.
Makes him feel better about what he witnessed, right?
No, I get you.
Okay, so there's this. So note that finding.
Right.
Then we have the findings on the inferred cause of death and the bullet wounds. Here comes a major twist. The initial reports from the coroner that were printed by the press before the gatekeepers could squash them. Here is how the initial stories from the Phoenix Gazette on October 20th and October 22nd reported these initial coroner's findings. October 20th, quote, "Another gun is missing, for the autopsy disclosed that each of the women had been shot with a gun of different caliber."
Right.
In the autopsy report from the coroner.
And so that's correct.
This is a traceable fact.
Right.
You can look this up now. It's a traceable fact.
Yeah.
October 22nd, quote, "Facts of the killings and butchery which point strongly to the theory that Mrs. Judd, a slight woman, could not possibly have completed the brutal task alone are, 1. The victims were shot with guns of different caliber, according to an autopsy performed in Los Angeles.
Right.
Both of them, Sammy and Ann, both shot with multiple caliber bullets."
So it happened in Two Guns, Arizona, not Phoenix.
Nice. And 2, the weight of Miss Leroy was greater than that of Mrs. Judd, indicating that the task of placing the victim in a trunk would have been too much for the one person.
Right.
So we know the answer to the moving the trunk part. She got people to help, Jack helped the moving company, the neighbors, because we are now privy to the timeline that the police at the time were not. But how do we explain the fact that between the two victims, there were bullet wounds from both a .25 caliber and a .32 caliber gun? 2 guns, Maz. 2 guns, like you said. 2 Guns, Arizona.
Yep.
In Sammy, she's talking like she killed Sammy.
Yeah.
Sammy has both caliber bullets in her. Keep this in mind.
We'll
go back in. We're going to go back into this later.
But the other one was trying to shoot
when Ann was hit.
When they were wrestling.
Sammy
might have shot the wrong one.
She was on the floor wrestling with Sammy for the gun.
And they shot the wrong one.
And Ann was with the ironing board.
I'm just saying the two. She did shoot Sammy, and the other person trying to shoot Ruth shot Sammy as well, potentially.
There was only one gun when Ruth was there.
Oh, so she's never talking about the second
Ruth
shot.
never saw the second gun.
But someone's saying, shoot him. So there was another gun. She might have...
No, that's all that one gun. Sammy came in with one gun.
Okay.
That Ruth and Sammy were fighting over the gun.
When did 3D printing come into this? I'm just trying to get the timeline. All right.
There was only one gun in what Ruth knows as the murder scene. But in the end, when the autopsy was done, the coroner found 2 different caliber bullets in both of them.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
It shoots through schools.
So now everyone is convinced, including Ruth, that Ruth murdered her 2 friends. But how could she have done that with a single gun?
Yeah.
When they both have double calibers in them.
So
okay.
This is the first time Ruth's account does not match the findings.
Right.
Yeah.
This is where the story starts going sideways a bit.
Yeah.
And like I said, everyone is thinking that Ruth is a psycho killer, qu'est-ce que c'est? And Jack did a good enough job fuckering around all the evidence, excuse me, that the police were at a total loss for what was going on.
Yeah.
Not only did he do all that with the bodies and get Ruth to bring them to L.A. with her, but he cleaned the apartment to the point that he got a plumber on the DL off book to come pull parts of Sammy out of the
plumber.
drain pipe.
I remember this movie, The Plumber.
No, an actual plumber who gets interviewed later in the book.
Mind, then.
He's pulling flesh and hair and stuff out of the drain pipe.
Oh, I get you. I was in the wrong movie.
So
Jack, the first time.
Jack disappeared the mattresses from the bedroom. Even had a cohort cut the bloody fingerprint he left on the blinds he touched. Disappeared. People doing all his dirty work for him.
Yeah.
The only evidence remaining pointed entirely to Ruth, except for the fact of her own brutal wounds in the 2 different murder weapons that show that,
Yeah. There's more to this story. Yeah.
But here was the biggest monkey in the wrench. Ruth wouldn't talk.
So Edward Abbey did it.
That timeline we got in the first part of this episode comes from her talking later on. Leading up to the trial, she insisted she wanted to tell her story, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but she would only do it in open court. So she wouldn't tell the law or the press her whole story. So they were able to full-on railroad her and essentially convince the world before her trial even started.
Like the mistake I made, right.
That she was a monster worthy of no less than being put to death.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing you did right at the beginning. You were like, she's a bitch.
Yeah. I was thinking HR.
But yeah, they totally just immediately, the press and the law and everybody just started railroading her. Oh, she's a monster. She's a monster. She's a monster. Yeah. The Tiger Woman, the Trunk Murderess, all that stuff. The Phoenix Papers, where the real trial was to take place and where Jack Halloran held all his influence, were actually particularly good at fixing the game against Ruth.
Right.
If you read the New York papers, you were getting a lot of the truth. If you were reading the Arizona and California papers, it was all nonsense. Kind of thing.
Now it's all nonsense in both cities.
Right.
Yay.
It evened out.
It did.
Yeah, everybody got on the same page. Isn't that nice? We just flipped it the wrong way.
Yes.
We flipped the page the wrong way, guys. And the law was no better. After those initial reports after the autopsy, there was never again any mention of any second gun being used in the murders. Not in the papers, not in the police reports. Somehow no one ever heard that ever again. And no one ever cared to look at the original autopsy reports.
Yeah,
it's the only place that exists now.
It's odd.
Except for those few quotes that are came from those papers on those few days in October 20th to 22nd. And you can still find those. Those are in the library on Chronicling America. You can find those actual papers.
Nice.
But other than that, those initial stories that came and went in a few days, never hear about it again. Including her own lawyers, by the way.
Well,
which we're going to get into that. Too.
Yeah. Would they want to bring that part up? Because that doesn't jive with Ruth's
Well,
account.
It would show that she wasn't the only one who was involved.
Exactly.
You know?
I think
because the whole thing with the case was she did it by herself and she's responsible for all of it.
I think in the fracas she just didn't hear the other gunshot that was meant for her that also hit Sammy.
Then why would both Anne and Sammy have that caliber bullet in them?
I mean,
you're saying
Ruth,
Anne brought another gun? Anne didn't bring a gun. Anne brought an ironing board.
Not Anne. But she was saying shoot. Oh,
yes,
right.
Sammy had
shoot.
one gun.
Right.
There was one
You
gun.
Shooter. Yes.
That was the 25 caliber gun that Ruth owned. The 32 caliber gun came after Ruth left the apartment at some point. I
gotcha. Because I know when they were wrestling, I heard, but you're right. I don't know. This makes no sense.
Right.
Okay,
so when Ruth was recovering in hospital after her arrest, a fancy lawyer with a fancy suit and fancy smile showed up. He's waving a contract and a pen in her face. He said he was sent by Mr. William Randolph Hearst himself, newspaper mogul of ginormous proportions. Can I get a harumph? Oh, no, wait, that comes after. And that, if she signed this here contract, he would serve at her behest as her counsel on this case, all proper bought and paid for by the most generous of philanthropists,
the other
Mr.
people.
William Randolph Hearst.
Yeah.
Can I get a harumph?
Yeah, harumph.
Harumph.
I'm getting it. I'm getting the conspiracy part of this.
Presented with such a flabbergasting and overwhelming display and what seemed at the time a most generous offer, Ruth signed the contract, and the devil's deal was made. Ruth's family acquired additional counsel of their own choosing through far less shady channels, and the so-called defense team was formed. Unfortunately for Ruth, it seemed at least half her team was playing for the wrong side. Guess which half, Moz? Guess which half?
The good half.
The fancy half.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that in a minute, though. What we are going to find is that after the arrest of Winnie Ruth Judd, the corruption that ensued was beyond the most wild imaginings, and it shows just how far people were willing to go to protect the oligarchical structure of Phoenix society at the time, atop the pinnacle of which sat Mr. Jack Halloran and all of his fancy piles of fancy money. He was a lumberman, you know.
And he's okay.
He was in wood.
100 acre.
There you go. Love a callback. So let's look at the police's so-called investigation into the murders. This was a farce from beginning to end. To get right down to it, here is how Jana Bommersbach reports on her interview with Mr. Hugh Enos.
Is that really okay?
Pause for Ma's laughter.
Did you write that?
His name is Mr. Hugh Enos.
Yeah.
Okay, you good?
Did you put two pauses?
I'm going to have to say
need two pauses.
I'm going to have to say it a couple times in the article, in the interview I'm going to read, so I want you to get it out of your system now, Maz.
I'm bad.
Mr. Hugh Enos was a member of the Phoenix... Now I'm going to laugh.
He has a very good friend in Rome, you know. Biggest dickest.
Okay. So Mr. Hugh Enos was a member of the Phoenix Police Department during the so-called investigation here. And here's the quote from his interview with Jana Bommersbach. Hugh Enos decries the investigation at every single point. How officers collected physical evidence, how they quickly latched onto a theory of the killings and ignored everything that didn't fit. How they blatantly hid all the evidence that undercut their version of what happened that deadly night. He says the Phoenix Police Department in 1931 botched the case from the moment they stepped into it, and he does not believe it was an accident. Quote, so much of what happened in this investigation smacks of exactly what it was. Political interference, Enos says. Remember, this was a small town, and a part of the policeman's job was to know who was doing what to whom. They knew out of self-defense because that's how you kept your job in those days.
And still how you keep your job.
Yeah, in these days. They'd know Jack Halloran was prominent. They'd know who his girlfriends were. Some of those cops even knew the victims. Enos found proof that Anne Leroy was no stranger to the Phoenix PD. One day, when he was going through old police records, quote, I found a mimeographed memo that was a case summation. It was faded and hard to read, but I got interested when I saw the name Agnes Leroy. I got the sense she'd been at least accused of prostitution. She'd been in the Jefferson Hotel downtown in the company of a guy, and there'd been a scene and the police were called. She wasn't arrested. The memo mentions that a guy who was then the chief of detectives, he later became the chief of police, took care of the situation. This occurred a few months before Agnes, or Anne, was killed.
Wait, what? Now that's a moment, right?
Yeah. Guess who the guy was?
No, I won't. What?
Jack Halloran.
Halloran. I was going to say Ritter, but now.
And that's how you go from chief detective to chief of police in Phoenix in the 1930s.
Yeah, and the 2020s.
And guess whose name never is mentioned in any of these stories? Jack Halloran.
Yeah.
Never named in any of these stories.
Yeah.
Not in the police record, not in the press.
Yeah.
They'll call him Mr. X or Witness 1. His name's never in it. His name's never in it.
And he's the one who totally destroyed the crime scene.
Correct.
If nothing else.
And set it up so that Ruth would be the only one to blame.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Okay. To clarify a bit, the evidence was mostly erased or ignored. Things like the bloody fingerprint on the bedroom window blind that just so happened to get literally cut out and disappeared after the initial investigation of the crime scene.
Yeah, that's your cut. Yeah, there's your problem right there. Right?
Yeah, like it was there when they first looked, and then it was gone later. Nobody ever talked about it.
They took it on blind faith.
Things like there being 2 different caliber bullets.
Yeah. Yeah, that never showed back
2
up.
guns.
Yeah.
Used in the killing.
Just.
Yeah. So
I'm getting a picture now.
So really, in the end, the police simply ignored the facts because the facts disagreed with the written narrative. The narrative the police were shaping their case around was that Winnie Ruth Judd acted totally alone, cold-bloodedly murdered, premeditated, cold-bloodedly murdered her 2 best friends because of jealousy over a man. Guess which man? Jack Halloran.
Ritter. I want to say Ritter. Can I just...
Jack Ritter was too good of a man to bring his name into this.
But Suzanne Summers was cleared of all charges. That's all I
would hope.
Yeah.
And back to the narrative. And then Ruth, all by her lonesome, surgically dismembered Sammy and packed the bodies away into her luggage and casually shipped said luggage to L.A. with her aboard the Amtrak train.
Yeah.
All by her lonesome without help.
Yeah.
This in light of all the evidence and witnesses and the simple logic of Ruth not being physically or skillfully capable of so many of these acts. The fix was most definitely in, I think is how they would say it back then. Still. Then there was Ruth's so-called, I'm going to air quote, defense team of lawyers.
Who were hired by the prosecutors.
Yeah. Seems like the fancy hired guy supposedly sent by none other than the Honorable William Randolph Hearst himself, turned out to look like another cog in Jack Halloran's money machine. The lawyer hired direct by the family seemed, at least in a way, to truly have Ruth's best interest at heart, but he was invariably shouted down by the hired gun at every turn, and the hired gun not only wasn't seeming to protect Ruth's best interests, he seemed to be actively working against them in a lot of ways. Could go on all day, but, we only have so much time. So for examples of this dastardly deeding, let's go to some newspaper articles from the time, again sourced from the Library of Congress's Chronicling America, again from the Douglas Daily Dispatch. This one from February 6th, 1932. Headline, Phoenix lumberman. I mentioned Jack Halloran was a lumberman, right?
Yeah. He's okay.
Phoenix lumberman not to be called as witness. J.J. Halloran, Phoenix sportsman and lumber dealer, was eliminated by County Attorney Lloyd J. Andrews tonight as a possible witness in Winnie Ruth Judd's trial for murder, if the course of events remains unchanged.
That'll be a first.
Halloran was named yesterday in testimony of Dr. Joseph Catton, San Francisco psychiatrist for the state, as the only person who took a drink at the apartment of Agnes Ann Leroy and Hedvig Samuelson on the night the 2 women were slain. Andrews declined to issue a definite statement regarding Halloran's projection into the case through the alienist's testimony, After a day spent in studying the trial transcript and in conference with his assistants, however, he let it be known Dr. Catton would doubtless be his last witness, particularly if the psychiatrist's story withstands the cross-interrogatory battering it is to receive tomorrow from Paul Schenk and Herman Lukowitz in defense counsel. As an aside, Schenk is I'm just going to call him the bad guy. Lukowitz is the at least kind of good guy. And spoiler alert, there was no battering by the defense counsel in rebuttal on this. They barely bothered to question any of the witnesses brought by the state.
Yeah. So they were just saying that to make it look like there was a fight for Ruth?
Right.
Okay.
And the papers have their own bias that comes through in this too. So just remember, we're reading the yellow journalism of the day right now.
Understood.
Okay, back to the article. Mrs. Judd, on trial for murder of Mrs. Leroy, is under separate indictment for the slaying of Miss Samuelson. Separate indictment. Remember that.
Same. Okay.
They chose to make two different cases.
From the same.
One for Anne and one for Sammy.
Okay.
And this is the one for Anne.
Gotcha.
Sammy's not supposed to be involved in this one.
Right.
It's just Anne.
Gotcha.
They chose to do it that way. Okay? Remember that. Once again, back to the article. The wealthy lumberman previously had been identified as a friend of all three women and as having visited all three on October 15th, the night before the slayings. But no other witness had named him as being present at the Leroy Samuelson house at any time during the night the women were killed. Dr. Catton, in his testimony, quoted statements he said were made to him by Mrs. Judd while he was engaged in the observation of her, which led him to declare her sane. There's a whole thing. He quoted her as saying also, she, quote, loves Jack Halloran with all my heart and soul, unquote, and there would not have been, quote, any Ruth Judd case without Jack Halloran, unquote.
Who isn't there to testify.
Which is true for so many of the worst reasons.
Yeah.
The prosecution looked upon Dr. Catton's testimony as bolstering more strongly than any evidence previously adduced its theory the women were slain because of jealousy on the part of Mrs. Judd, even though it brought to light associations between Halloran and Mrs. Judd. The defense had served tacit notice it had expected. Which means, oh, no big deal, we knew that.
Right.
Is what that means. Mrs. Judd's counsel said Halloran would not be called as a defense witness. Quote, he's not our witness as the case now stands, said Lukowitz. Quote, we won't need his direct testimony, unquote. So that's supposed to be the good guy.
Right.
And even he's like, we don't have to question him.
Yeah.
Halloran himself preserved studied silence. He declined to make any statement except to indicate he did not intend to demand the state place him on the stand. Oh, he's not going to demand it. Quote, I have nothing to say about it, he said.
Yeah.
Andrew said the lumberman volunteered before the trial to testify if the state desired. The defense is attempting to establish Mrs. Judd insane at the time of the slayings, and tomorrow, the 13th court day since the slender defendant went on trial for her life, will attempt to break down Dr. Catton's unqualified testimony. She suffers from no mental disorder. Defense counsel said tonight their present plan is to call no witnesses in rebuttal. Testimony of Dr. Catton, who took the stand in rebuttal for the state, was expected to close the case tomorrow, and unless the plans for prosecution or defense undergo change, counsel for both sides believe Mrs. Judd's fate will be placed in the hands of the jury sometime Monday. Today was Southern Arizona Arbor Day, and court was in recess. That's the last sentence of the article.
Wow.
That sentence blew my mind.
Yeah.
At the end of that article, they mentioned, today was Southern Arizona Arbor Day, and court was in recess. They closed everything on Arbor Day back then so you could go plant a tree.
Yeah. Okay.
That's maybe the brightest spot in this whole episode. So I'm just letting that.
We don't do that anymore. Yeah, we just tear that shit down.
Okay. So let's look at how bad this all really is. The defense is putting up no defense.
Yeah.
They are summarily ignoring the evidence just as much as the police and prosecution. They are bypassing cross-examination of the prosecution's witnesses and not planning on calling any of their own.
Yeah. Because they're watching our Arbor Day special on Ents.
Yeah. And do you remember what I said about when Ruth wanted to tell her story? She would
tell people that were not related.
She would only tell it in open court.
Yeah, she was not going to tell it to the people she knew were in the dole. Yeah.
And they're going to call no witnesses.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk more on that in a minute. Just really grinds my gear, I think is the phrase for it. Essentially, they are allowing the state to have their way with them. The defense team here, I'm still talking about, and putting up literally no fight whatsoever. Right. Worst of all, they're denying literally everyone involved what they really want out of this trial, which is Ruth's story. Yeah. That's what everyone's been waiting for. The jury, she said right from the beginning, that's when she was going to tell it, and the jury's waiting for it, and the courtroom's waiting for it. Everybody's waiting for it. And she's been assured. Lukowitz keeps telling her, oh yeah, you're totally going to take the stand. You're totally going to take the stand.
Mm-hmm. It never takes a stand, yeah.
Every member of the jury, everyone in the courtroom, everyone in the public reading the newspapers, been on the edge of their seats for this, waiting for this moment in this trial. Right. This was like the OJ trial each time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The glove fits.
It was.
Yeah.
And they're all like, wait, what happened?
What happened?
The moment never came. Yeah. The defense was given their opportunity to present its case to the court and immediately rested. Mm-hmm. No case presented. No defense mounted. Yeah. No one came to Ruth's rescue. She wasn't even allowed to come to her own. She was thrown vigorously and deeply under the proverbial bus. And the judge of the case was no less crooked than the police and the defense and everybody else. He allowed the prosecution to get away with glaringly unjust and unlawful tactics during the trial. For an example,
I was going to mention that guy, because obviously a judge presided over this and had
so-called judge. I like saying so-called a lot in this story.
Yep. Yeah.
It's one of the things in Jana Bommersbach's book that I don't get to do in here. She shows this case to like current day judges and lawyers and stuff, and gets their reaction to it. And woof.
Yeah.
Woof.
Yeah, no, I get you. I feel like a judge in a movie would have just looked at the lady and said, are you sure you don't want to come up here and say something, lady?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, he allowed the prosecution to get away with glaringly unjust and unlawful tactics. For an example of this, let's look at another article from the time. This again from the Douglas Daily Dispatch. This time dateline January 23rd, 1932. In all of these headlines, by the way, so far, they dropped down as time went on, but all of these articles from the actual trial, all top headline front page news.
Yeah.
And this was stealing headlines from things like Al Capone's imprisonment and Thomas Edison's death. Mm-hmm. Like, she was topping those guys. And that's how big of a case this was.
And when Geraldo Rivera went back into Al Capone's vault,
yeah,
topping that too.
Yeah, she totally topped that. Shit, I think we topped that. Oh man! But anywho, here's the article. See in this one if you can notice the bias that with which this story was written.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I have. You've done a lot of things I don't like.
Oh, this one's exemplary.
Oh, your part.
In that sense. No, this newspaper article I'm about to read you. The headline reads, Judd defense fails to bar gruesome exhibits. Winnie Ruth Judd, drawing a step nearer the death, imprisonment, or freedom, which it is in the power of an all-male jury to give her, lost today her first major encounter with implacable Arizona law. Her counsel failed in a ringing battle to protect her from jury observation of evidence not only of the slaying, but of the dismemberment and transportation and personal custody of the slim, wide-eyed defendant of portions of the body of Hedvig Samuelson, aka Sammy. Remember how I said these were two different cases? Because
Yes.
the prosecution chose to do it that way?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Led by the veteran Paul Schenck of Los Angeles, whose leonine mane dominated the dramatic scene in the little mahogany wainscoted courtroom.
Leonine mane.
Yeah.
I'm going to do one on
Her
Werecats
attorneys
next time.
argued in vain against introduction of a scarred and bedraggled leather suitcase, innocent in itself, except for the graphic picture called up by its recent sanguine associations and for the precedent it may set in this case. The court disagreed with her counsel. Imagine that. The battered receptacle in which the torso of Miss Samuelson was found in a railway station seemingly evoked no emotion in Mrs. Judd, apparently recovered from a fit of extreme nervousness which threatened to break down her close reserve yesterday. She eyed indifferently the stained piece of hand baggage and the various witnesses who declared her its owner. If Judge Howard C. Speakman's ruling of today, in which defense objections to the suitcase was denied on grounds, get this, it had no bearing on the slaying of Agnes Ann Leroy, is carried out with respect to other physical evidence, Mrs. Judd likely will be forced to observe presentation to the jury of photographs of the dismembered body of Miss Samuelson, once her girlfriend.
Dang.
Do we all see what's going on? I'm gonna break this down.
Yeah, because
This is a glaring example of malfeasance on behalf of the judge. To clarify, Ruth is on trial only for the murder of Agnes Ann Leroy.
right.
The state very specifically chose to try her separately for they could have just done it all at once.
Right.
They said, nope, we're doing it separate. This means that any prejudicial evidence having to do with the other slaying of Hedvig Samuelson, Sammy, is not admissible. Thank you. In this case, according to really every American law ever written.
And GARP.
Every law ever written. The judge allowed the prosecution to show the jury pictures of Miss Samuelson's dismembered body, not just the ones in the trunk with Miss Leroy's body even, which would have been wrong enough. That still wouldn't have been something they should have done. But all the other pieces of luggage that had nothing directly to do with the case of Agnes Leroy.
You've got to put the two suitcases, open them up, put the bodies together. You can't separate this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's two suitcases with multiple bodies.
Yeah.
How do you...
They could have tried her all at once.
No, I'm
and
just
then they
saying
could have
it's
shown them everything.
absurd.
It's absurd.
It's absurd.
And again, this is just one example of how corrupt the whole damn thing was from top to bottom.
But this is a new judge, Judge Speakman.
Right. This is the judge for the
Women
actual
don't
trial.
get to speak, so it's Speakman.
Yeah. Yeah, and in those days, the law said that only men could sit on juries.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, I get it.
And I think women were allowed to be lawyers, but good luck.
Yeah.
So now we have the cops, the lawyers, and even the judge on the hook for mucking this whole thing up in a wholly criminal kind of fashion. But the hits just keep on hitting because if it wasn't bad enough that the entire system at every level was corrupted by Jack, I'm going to call him the Phoenician oligarch Halloran.
Call him Ritter.
But he even got to the jury. You see, when the jury adjourned after hearing the prosecution's trumped-up case, that phrase seems to take on new meaning these days, doesn't it? With hardly any rebuttal at all from the defense, actually no rebuttal from the defense, the jury only took 4 hours to return with a verdict. That verdict? Guilty.
Oh, yeah.
Guilty.
Right.
Guilty in the most heinous way, guilty.
Yeah.
And they convicted Winnie Ruth Judd to death.
Right. That's what
Not just life in prison.
Didn't want her speaking about it later.
She would be hung by her neck for the atrocities they all agreed unanimously before the court she committed.
Yeah. Throw her into the pond.
But then something happened. Not long after the case was closed and the execution date set, a number of the jurors began coming forward to express a change of heart. They never intended for Mrs. Judd to hang, they said. This wasn't how this was supposed to go at all, they said. Again, what the hell's going on, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot
Another
of
plot twist.
what the hell's going on happens a
plot
lot
twist.
in this story. When they were each individually questioned on what in good God's tarnation they were talking about, because that's how they talked in Arizona back then, they all had the same story. Let's hear from the jurors in this selection from Jana Bommersbach's book. I like saying that. Jana Bommersbach's book. Quote, all of them pointed an accusing finger at fellow juror Dan Kleinman, a 56-year-old rancher who had once been mayor of Mesa, Arizona, a small community east of Phoenix known mostly as a Mormon settlement.
No, mostly for Chupacabra Brewing Company.
Oh, yeah. In my mind, absolutely.
Yeah.
Best thing to ever come out of Mesa.
Yeah. That was
Chupacabra.
years later. We're just jumping timelines again.
On March 9th, 1933, juror Ed Landrigan signed this notarized affidavit. Quote, I was the last Judd juror who changed my verdict from life imprisonment to the death penalty. I was so worried over having changed, I didn't sleep all that night. Never would I have changed as I did had it not been for Dan Kleinman, who insisted that we should vote the extreme penalty. Then, he argued, such a verdict would make Mrs. Judd talk, involving the accomplice or accomplices. Dan said that he had a good political friend on the Board of Pardons and Paroles, and that he would get the sentence commuted if Mrs. Judd would talk.
Why don't those people show up when we do shit?
Furthermore, all of us jurors made an agreement as a body that if new evidence came to light subsequently and Mrs. Judd would talk, we would immediately urge the Board of Pardons and Paroles to have the sentence commuted. Quote, if it had not been for the above promise, I would not have come over to the death penalty.
Aye.
Turns out Kleinman had influenced about half the jurors with the same fabrication.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately for all those involved, except for Kleinman and Halloran, of course, none of it works that way. And it turns out Kleinman was a Manchurian juror who was on the jury to make sure, for absolute certain, that Ruth was hung by her neck until dead to finish the cover-up once and for all.
You know, if these guys are so thorough, why 2 suitcases full of body parts on them? And there's a big desert right there. I know where this takes place.
He was a developer in Phoenix
in
the early 1930s.
Yeah.
Do you know how much empty desert?
Yeah, this is the part that doesn't make sense. He was very thorough later.
They wouldn't have found him for 50 years.
Yeah, I know.
And then they wouldn't have known what to do.
They would have thought a hiker died up
like
climbing Camelback Mountain.
Oof. Well, I mean, there's so many places back then. The place was empty, man.
I don't get it.
That's the part. Still,
that's the
like
part.
Think about how much empty space there still is out there.
I can see the people running away from the suitcases who could have just done some better plan and not had to go through this rigmarole.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So, kids, if you're going to kill someone,
always have a place to hide the body.
Always just hide the body.
I mean, that was a rule of Gen Xers all know that, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to kill somebody, make sure you have a place to put the body first.
We are the apex Gen.
Like, we all know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And even though you're on the young end, I'm on the old end, we are both Gen X.
Oh, we're like bookmarks.
We are bookmarks for Gen X.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So that is why we're smart.
I'm going to get in a lot of trouble with a lot of my friends, but man, I'm glad I'm not a millennial.
I'm glad I'm not a boomer.
I'm friends with so many millennials, and I love them, but I'm so glad I'm not.
Somebody once did say,
I almost was. I was very close.
I got an okay boomer. You're never going to get that. Someone said that to me, and I was like,
oh, good
Gen
Lord.
X, dude. Don't ever say that again.
I might punch someone if I get that.
You want to go to Amtrak with me? I got a couple suitcases.
Yeah. I got a trunk in my closet.
I got a trunk in my closet.
Actually, I got a hole in the woods.
Going jingling.
Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's get back to
we got away with that. See?
I'm going to get back to our story before I say any more. So these jurors petitioned the Board of Parole repeatedly to review the case and at least forego the death penalty until a full investigation into all the shenanigans coming to light could be completed. Kleinman was actually brought to court and stuff. I only had so much time here, so I didn't go into that part. He almost got in trouble, but not really. He almost got in trouble. The book is really good. If you're digging this story, seriously, get the book. It's awesome.
Can I do for the back book cover my one line for this whole thing?
Uh-huh.
Jack Halloran is a lumberman. He's not okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Only Python fans are going to get
Only
that one.
Python fan will enjoy this whole episode. Yeah.
But of course, the Board of Parole, or whatever they're calling themselves, was just as corrupted by the almighty Halloran dollar as everyone else in the city. So it was a big no-go on the commutation. The powers that be wanted Ruth hung, and by gum, that's what they were going to get, whether all the lowly poors liked it or not. But then things kind of ebbed in Ruth's favor for once, finally. By now, this whole thing was front-page news all across the country. Even New York City was abuzz with the madness of the Trunk Murderess trial of the century, and the corruption had become so uncovered that there was no more trying to hide it. So as the final days before Ruth's scheduled execution date started ticking away, a compromise was finally reached. Just 3 days before her execution, 72 hours,
You gotta stay.
Ruth was finally given a review by the parole board on the basis of rethinking her insanity plea.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving her an out. There were numerous attempts by numerous parties to get the trial declared a mistrial, to not just get a commutation of execution, but a full pardon. None of that was working. This is the compromise they were given. Many now believe that Ruth had acted in self-defense, that the horrible things done to her friends' bodies was carried out by other involved parties never named, although it was pretty obvious to anyone paying attention who at least some of those parties were.
Right. And
that the whole sentencing of premeditated murder in the first degree was just pure confabulational nonsense.
How do you end up with that many bruises on something prefabricated?
Right.
You know,
And the whole thing
really
is,
went badly.
if she still shot somebody and she took part in moving the bodies around, you're still going to jail for a while. But it's not something you hang somebody for.
But you're crazy, or it's prefabricated. You can't have both.
Correct. That's what they're giving her a rehearing for. So the powers that be compromised with the rehearing of an insanity plea, at which hearing Ruth played into her role very well, pretty much acting a certifiable fool in front of the board, and she was given a commutation of execution literally just hours, 3 days before its scheduled time. And Ruth was shipped off to what I will lovingly refer to as the loony bin for rehabilitation. The Arizona State Mental Hospital, or whatever it was. But there was, of course, a big old catch. The new sentence said, this is so outrageous, like I'm going to have a hard time reading this without losing my mind a little bit. The new sentence said that Ruth was to undergo treatment for her insanity at the sanatorium, but if she were ever to officially regain her sanity, the previous sentencing of death by hanging would be immediately reinstituted, and she would be put to death at the state's earliest convenience.
Wow.
This was not only highly unusual, but also, once again, highly unlawful.
Yeah.
Essentially, what they did was, instead of just murdering Ruth like they wanted to, they compromised by locking her in the darkest corner they could find and throwing away the key.
Right.
It worked pretty well, too. It worked well. Except for Winnie Ruth Judd becoming a Houdini-level escape artist during her time at the loony bin.
Oh, this gets better.
She escaped a number of times during her time there. Sometimes for some time at a time.
Nice. Kudos.
Did I say that right? That's actually all going to be in the sideshow.
Nice.
Following this episode. But foregoing that, add it all up, she ended up spending, all said and done, just under 39 years.
Yikes.
As a ward of the state of Arizona.
Nice.
39 years. It was like 38 years, 10 months, some weeks kind of thing.
Can I make a twist in this plot?
Yeah.
39 years of state funding for that woman to be taken care of would never happen today. If you want to just bring it full circle to the weirdness of today. Even if she needed it. She didn't need it. She got it. Now you might need it, but you're not going to get it. Just saying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse.
Yeah.
Good job,
I'm bringing
Mons.
Heather's little team.
The
into
darkness
this one.
just got a shade darker.
Yeah. I know.
Wow.
Yeah. That's what I bring to this team. Nothing.
Oh. Where was I? Okay.
A dark corner of an asylum.
39 years. It wasn't until December 22nd, 1971, that the governor of Arizona finally paroled Winnie Ruth Judd and set her free into the world. Still on parole, though, by the way.
Dang.
She was still on parole for like a couple of years. It was now over 40 years since her battle with her two best friends, and only now could she begin to get out from under the endless trail of horrors she had traveled since that fateful night. Fateful night. These true crimes are tough. Anything to add before we finish up with get into our theory section?
I'm more confused, but this one seems pretty clear that it was a terribly botched situation that then became a totally rigged courtroom, from the people sitting on the jury to the judge to the prosecutor to the defense attorney. The only person, Ruth had on her side in that moment was her in that courtroom.
Yeah.
So I have to apologize for my snap judgment.
Even her husband was
yeah.
Oh my God, I'm going to swear again. What a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Really. I didn't get into that really because you can't do it. The book is really good.
Nice.
And man, do you feel for Ruth by the end of this whole thing.
Manchurian.
She did some dumb things, but goddamn, 40 years, dude. They took 40 years of this woman's life to cover up for some rich dude.
Yeah, I get it.
Are you still with us out there, everybody?
Tell ya. It's dark.
All right. Well, we're going to get into the theories section of our episode now, as we always do at the end of a Monster Lore Tour. Again, the book, if you want to pick it up, I'm going to give you the full name again. It's The Trunk Murderess, Winnie Ruth Judd. The Truth About an American Crime Legend Revealed at Last by Jana Bommersbach. I'll put it in the show notes. Ms. Bommersbach was the first person to get Winnie Ruth Judd to truly open up to her directly about her whole story. Like I said, she interviewed her plus a bunch of other people, anyone she could find at all involved in the case and whatnot. The book was published in 1992, some 61 years after the tragic deaths of Agnes and Hedwig, Anne and Sammy. And it is probably the first time that Ruth's whole story was told in its entirety. Imagine that, 61 years.
To get your story told.
Yeah, to get your story actually fully told properly.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're in the genre, if you like this episode, totally pick it up. It's very well worth a read. But okay, with that, let's get into our theory section for the week.
Can I do mine real quick? Because then I'll be done in like 5 seconds.
Sure.
All right, so I'm ready. I'm going to do the clue ending. It was the heinous with the hacksaw and the Bommersbach. It's just the clue ending.
You weren't paying attention at all.
I said it'd be fast for the Al Guano.
Oh boy. But in the end, everyone had their own theory of how this whole thing went down. You know, 'cause you didn't get Ruth's whole story till now,
right.
You know, or till the 90s. You know what I mean? Like people then didn't ever really get the story.
No, I feel bad that I threw under the bus or threw under the Amtrak immediately.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, right. She didn't get thrown on the bus. She got thrown on the train.
Yeah,
that's way worse.
Yep, throw mama.
But everyone ended up having their own theory about what really happened. I'm going to kind of bullet point the main ones that built up in the aftermath. Kind of the most common, you know.
You did that on purpose, right?
Sure. Okay. It's a multi-font bullet point.
Ooh.
Huh?
Multi-caliber.
And then once we do like the most common, we'll get into our own. And I do have, the segments don't always fit with the true crime, the segments we usually do, but I do have an Ajo Guano where I give you the entirety of my theory. my personal theory, okay?
This is our batshit theory of the week.
First, we will do a few of the most prominent theories that came out of it and discuss those, okay? So the first theory is Ruth killed her friends, but Jack did the rest. This theory says that Ruth shot and killed both her friends in the battle, but no one really buys that she did the cutting up and packing up the bodies. That didn't go over with anybody in the end. No one believed that anymore.
But she was 2 caliber. She didn't have 2 guns. Didn't have 2 calibers.
But this theory doesn't actually add up if you look at the details of Ruth's story even. Because I'm going to add a little bit to this too, beyond the 2-gun thing. Ruth says that as she was trying to get up from the floor after her grappling battle with Sammy over the gun, Ann wonked her over the head with the ironing board, knocking her flat and unconscious to the floor. Ruth did have the gun in her hand at that point for a moment, and reports firing it at the moment of being hit. But she reenacted the actual physical movement of it at a hearing later on in court. When Ann hit her she was pretty much face and chest to the floor trying to get up when Ann hit her over the head. Yeah. She wasn't even looking at Ann when she got hit.
She was in the process of standing up.
And it knocked her out. Like, she got wonked and it knocked her out.
Yeah.
So there seems little to no chance that any shot fired in that position would have done Ann any mortal damage. Like, even if she, like, maybe pointing it back at her, like, the odds of actually hitting her in a way they're going to kill her, pretty low. She does say Sammy got shot in the chest during the struggle. But the struggle continued. Sammy got shot, but she kept fighting. You got to remember that, too, in Ruth's actual story. Okay, that's the first theory that developed, was that. But a lot of people ended up thinking, oh, she killed him, but she didn't actually do the cover-up.
Right.
Okay. Theory 2, one of the main, most popular in the zeitgeist kind of theories that came out of this. Ruth killed Sammy, but not Ann. And Jack did the rest. This one gets more into the range of possibility with what we know. In the struggle for the gun, it went off multiple times. One caught Ruth in the hand. She says one of them hit Sammy in the chest. Maybe it hit her somewhere that's important to survival. There were a couple other shots that went off that she doesn't even really know. Again, there's no real proof. For some reason, Sammy was reported as having multiple caliber bullets in her. Ruth only ever held the 25. She never saw a 32. And she said Sammy was shot in the chest.
Where was the other shot?
When you go to where Jack is now messing with the body, he picks her up, brings her back, and is messing with the bodies. Sammy has a bullet in her head.
Right.
She never saw a bullet.
She was never bleeding from the head.
Right. She never saw a bullet go to Sammy's head, only the chest. She said it repeatedly, the chest.
Right.
Sammy wasn't shot in the head when Ruth left that apartment, as far as she knew. And when she came back, suddenly there's a bullet in Sammy's head.
Yeah. Post-mortem.
Yeah. So that's theory 2, though, is that she killed Sammy, but not Ann. Okay? Theory 3.
I like that one.
Theory 3, and this is one that comes up with a couple people Ms. Bommersbach talks to in her book, and she kind of ends up leaning this way herself. Ruth didn't actually kill anybody. When you start looking at what is left of actual evidence from this case, there seems good reason to believe that Ruth, who straight up confessed to killing her friends in self-defense, didn't actually kill anybody. It's absolutely bonkers, bat crap crazy to think about, which is why this is my Ahu Guano theory of the week.
Oh no, here it comes! Quick, to the batshit signal.
Ooh.
You like how I just slid right into that, don't you, Moz?
You'll have to cut mine. I thought we were already Ahu Guanoing, but that's okay.
Oh no, this is the Ahu Guano. You ready?
I'm ready.
This Ahu Guano theory is my own flushed out version of the she didn't kill anyone theory, with my own mentally reconstructed timeline of events. Don't worry, I'll keep it short. It goes like this. The women battle in the kitchen. Shots are fired. People are wounded, but no one is immediately killed. Anne knocks Ruth cold with the ironing board after Ruth runs the gun away from Sammy. Ruth falls to the floor unconscious and bleeding all over the place from the wound in her hand and maybe her head since she just got wonked with a 1930s style ironing board.
Haven't we all?
There's probably some asbestos in there.
Yeah.
Anne and Sammy are freaking out and think Ruth is dead. Anne and Sammy actually get up. They're still up. Sammy gets up. Anne is still up. They're thinking Ruth is dead and that they just killed their friend. In panic, they call Jack because he's the guy with all the answers, right?
The plumber.
They figure Jack can fix this. Jack can fix anything in this town.
Yep.
But when Jack shows up, he freaks out himself. He gets all pissed that they would get him involved in such a situation, especially after the scene, let's remember this, Anne caused at the fancy hotel recently, when the chief detective got to be chief of police after for covering it up, if you remember that. And instead of helping them clean up their mess, he decides to clean up his own.
Right.
Jack and whatever henchman...
In the moment.
Yeah, Jack and whatever henchman he brought with him do the dirty deed of murder in the first. And they lay the bodies next to Ruth's on the kitchen floor, leaving temporarily to get whatever they think they need to rid themselves of the bodies. But while they are gone, Ruth, who isn't actually dead, wakes up to find herself between the two bodies of her recently best friends.
Yeah, they think they'd line them up. All three of them are dead.
She was laying right between them.
The two of them, yeah. This was, cords of wood
each
style.
with noticeable bullet holes in them.
Right. And he could just say they got in this big fight. They killed each other.
Now, it's Ruth's turn to freak, and she skedaddles right the duck out of there and runs home.
Yeah.
Her plan is to get her money, go to a payphone, call her husband in California. Remember we went through this earlier. In the meantime, Jack and his cronies come back to the murder scene to find a body missing.
Yeah.
Jack's turn to freak out again.
Yeah.
And now he's been drinking to try to calm the stress. But this kind of stress takes a lot of drinking to put down. This is how he comes to show up at Ruth's place before she can get back out the door to go call her husband. And he's already 3 sheets to the wind.
So he calls Dr. Brown.
Already acting very odd duckly, even though he's not supposed to know anything about what happened yet. Mm-hmm. From our earlier story,
right.
Remember all this? Ruth commences to lay it all out for him, pouring her heart out to the man that she thinks cares about her deeply, and whom she thinks can fix all this, just like her friends.
Thought the same thing.
Exactly. And he's there like, you're supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
Jack acts all innocent and tells Ruth not to worry. I'll take care of everything.
He did, though. He didn't lie.
And lets her keep on believing that she was the bad guy here and that he is the saving angel, when in reality he is the monster and she is the victim. And because of the wheres, whens, and who's involved, he was readily able to pin everything straight on Ruth and sweep her way in under the rug.
Oh, yeah.
Side note, this case is often referred to as the biggest skeleton in Arizona's closet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because he had he called the doctor complied, he called every part of that courthouse, the courthouse complied. Yeah. He did play that town like a fiddle.
Something I didn't get into that is worth mentioning. While Ruth was in prison, before she got sent to the loony bin, Dr. Brown showed up drunk a couple of times telling her, I'm going to go tell him everything. I'm going to tell him everything.
Yeah.
Like he basically admitting to her that he was the guy that cut up the body.
Yeah.
But he never did it. He never actually followed through and did it.
I get it.
He teased her with it. Like he teased her with freedom. And such horrible things happened to this woman.
Yeah. No, he was just wrestling with his own demons. He would have liked to have, but he was too afraid in the end.
Yeah.
So that's when he found Marty, and they went back to the future.
Oh, no. But that does wrap it up for my presentation on the Winnie Ruth Judd case. The side trail is going to shine at least a little light into the darkness of Ruth's whole situation. So it may cheer us up a bit anyway, Moz.
Yeah.
I'm going to record that just after this. And to bring things back into the light a bit before we close up here. As a footnote to the story, I do want to tell you that even though Jack Halloran was never brought to justice for his apparent crimes in this case, it did in the end destroy his reputation in the city of Phoenix. Mm-hmm. He lost his highfalutin job, along with that highfalutin paycheck, and his name was so mud everywhere he had to go into business just for himself, at which point he failed miserably because no one would buy things from him and no one would work for him.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And he had very limited business to work off of. He died poor and alone many years later in the same home he owned way back then because he couldn't afford to buy another one, and no one wanted to live in the house he used to live in.
Yeah, and the only reason that
he was a monster.
The only reason that resonates with me is because he cared about money. I would have been happy to
correct
to just have done that.
We're so on the same page. Yeah. My notes conclude: it is little solace, but we all know the worst thing you can do to a rich man is take his money away, and that is what the city of Phoenix did to Jack Halloran. So we at least have that.
Nice.
Anything to add or subvert before we go, Moss?
No, I actually think your Al Huguano probably is closest, and I know it was matched some of the zeitgeisty things a little bit.
It sounds so
did
crazy.
Your own version of one of the
with people thinking people
theories.
Are dead. It's such a movie scene, like it's a freaking
they were
Tarantino
stacked
movie.
up like they were all dead. They didn't fall that way.
Right.
Jack moved them all into the corner, thought he had his little cords of wood, and then he wandered off to come up with his story or not story,
right,
or not deer, you know.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but I still don't know why they decided the best move was to put in suitcases in the train. That's still
with the Sonoran Desert, dude.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to bury them. Take them out 20 miles, throw them out there. Everything eats them, and it's 1931. People find bones in the desert. What are they going to do? There's no DNA.
So again, the big takeaway, kids.
And there's no evidence to who puts it. Like, I'm not saying you should murder anybody, but come on.
But if you're gonna.
You're that guy in that situation. You can't take care of a couple bodies. What's it worth?
The Grand Canyon.
What's all that power and money worth if you can't take care of that?
You throw bodies in the Grand Canyon for the next million years, you're not going to fill the Grand Canyon.
That's very true. Oh, man. We should probably stop talking before we implicate ourselves in something. I don't even know where we're going with this. We do not advocate anything that happened in this episode.
Yeah. But if you need Jack Halloran, call Jack Halloran at Jack Halloran.
Let's go do the side trail so I can be happier, because it really is such a happier part of her story. And there actually is, when you listen to the side trail, Ruth does, I mean, you can't give her back those 40 years, but she does get at least a reasonably happy ending at the end of it all. So definitely check out the side trail. You can check it out on Patreon right now if you want to. Throw in $1 a month toward the Monster Lore Tour, or it'll be out in the next Side Trail compilation, which might be a couple months.
Because we were at a meeting where we decided we're not worth $1.50 a month, but $1. We all agreed, yeah.
It
was a big meeting, like a big board meeting.
What the duck? It's only $1. Yeah. I don't know why I started doing that today, but I'm going to stick with the pattern.
What the duck?
I like the duck.
I like it.
Odd duck. Okay, well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Once again, for this leg of the Monster Lore Tour, make sure to hit the auto download button or ring the bell or whatever it is, depending on the platform you're on. We're on all the major audio platforms. We got YouTube now. It's behind a ways on the episode count, but the early episodes were audio remastered on YouTube. So if you're just joining the Monster Lore Tour and want to start from the beginning, that would be the way to do it. I mentioned the Patreon. Anything else, Moz?
No,
I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Well, that does it for this LEGO Monster Lore Tour. Until next time, tell our fellow para-nerdalists out there, have a good one. Make sure you burn me in my Holocaust cloak. That's very important.